People, hello, how are we? Hopefully we're all doing well. I'm Tom. This weekend coming up, we have Chris Billam versus Zurdo Ramirez on the Latino Riyadh season card. And I think this is being sort of billed as a Chris Billam is going to fight, you know, what most people consider, certainly myself, consider the final boss in the cruiserweight division, Jar Pataya. I think he's kind of widely considered the final boss, I say. And it's kind of just accepted. Chris Billam, I think, you know, from people I've spoken to, which granted are perhaps more casual fans and certainly a British audience, kind of just accept that Chris Billam is going to win, go on to fight the final boss, Jar Pataya. But actually, I don't think it's as clear cut, you know, as clear cut as that. It's not cut and dried. Billam going to win. The changes we've seen in Zurdo Ramirez, Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, since moving up to cruiserweight from his, you know, since his loss to Dimitri Bivol at light heavyweight, I think it speaks volumes of his capabilities as a boxer and how good he actually is. Down at 175, we used to see Ramirez bring the pressure to his opponent, bring the fight to his opponent. He uses size to swarm his opponent and, like I say, bring the fight, bring the pressure, and kind of just try and swallow them. Go and watch Bivol versus Ramirez. He lost, but look at just, you can see the kind of size difference. He was a big light heavyweight. He's not a small cruiserweight, but he was small enough to get down to 175. And he used that size advantage in that. Whereas since moving up, he then took a layoff. I believe it was around a year since he lost to Bivol after, you know, he took a year off and then came back. And during that, him and his coach clearly really worked on refining his boxing skills, coming up with some new tactics and perfecting the move up and the style he wanted to have when moving up. He obviously knew that the style he had down at 175 wasn't quite going to work up at 200 pounds, up at cruiserweight. And he spent a bit of time kind of perfecting his craft, and it's worked. Since fighting at cruiserweight after losing to Bivol, we've seen him change his style and work on his actual kind of boxing skills, his fundamentals, back to basics, jabs, you know, his boxing IQ and ability to walk around the ring. And that being said, I actually think he's got the better boxing ability here. I think he's got, in this fight, the faster hands, you know, just faster kind of all round in general. And, you know, he's used to boxing on the front foot, which is how Billam likes to fight, but has shown now, since moving up to cruiserweight, that he can actually box more of a mover. You know, now he can box like that too. We've seen that his ability to, I wouldn't call him necessarily a mover, and I'm sure he can still go back to those front foot pressure fighting, but now he is more of a mover. He uses his speed, his fast hands, his boxing ability, his counter punching to get him the win. And that's what he's been doing at cruiserweight. And he's been getting better and better and better. That's the thing. He's been up at cruiserweight. He's gotten better and better and better and better. He hasn't stagnated. He hasn't just accepted where he's at. He has moved up. He has improved and he has gotten better. I'm not saying Chris Billam hasn't. I'm just saying it's been more of a noticeable improvement in Zurdo Ramirez. The thing is, whilst I think Ramirez is, you know, perhaps the better boxer, I think we've seen that Chris Billam has a way of luring fighters into fighting how he wants them to fight. He's got a way of making them box a specific way, a specific style that he can outdo you at. You know, he'll make it a real ugly, wear you down, at times you could say boring fights. We saw it against Lawrence Okoli, who at the time was an undefeated fighter. We saw it against Richard Riakporhe, who at the time was an undefeated fighter. Both those boys went in as favourites against Chris Billam, but we saw Chris Billam use just luring you into fighting a specific style that he knows he's going to outdo you at. He's going to outdog you. He's got that such good fitness, such good gas tank that he'll wear you down, you box an ugly style, that he'll outdo you and beat you and get you that points decision. You know, a lot of clinching, a lot of rough housing, bit of wrestling going on, and Chris Billam is really good at that, and he'll get you to do that. And I think Ramirez might be more inclined to box like that because he used to have a similar sort of style down at light heavyweight. He used to have that front foot under pressure you fight, you know, sort of fighting style that Chris Billam has. And I feel like he might be like, oh, okay, well, I'll do this back. I'll show you how I can do it. And then that's where Chris Billam-Smith likes that. If that happens, it's going to go Chris Billam-Smith's way, because he's got that ability to just bring you down. Make, you know, you're up there and he's there, but he'll bring you down and get you to there through a real roughhousing sort of style and get the win. I think we've seen that in the last few sort of fights. Like I said, I just think Ramirez, we've seen him improve, and he needs to stick to what he's been doing and how he's been improving to get through this. And look, I think he might fall into the trap of Billam-Smith, and Billam-Smith's going to want to make him do that. But I also think actually Ramirez is going to be aware of that. He's not going to be stupid. He's going to be aware of that. He's going to be like, no, I need to get back to my box. I know I'm faster than you. I know I can move. I need to stick to what my strengths are in this division. So what's the possibility of a knockout in this fight? I don't think there'll be one. There's always a possibility, of course there is, especially in these higher divisions. But I don't think there's going to be one. I think this fight, if there is going to be one, it will be from Chris Billam-Smith. I don't think Ramirez has the size to be able to knock out Billam-Smith, especially with his new style. It just means that I don't think he'll be able to get to Chris Billam-Smith. I don't think he'll be able to get him down, especially, you know, with Chris Billam-Smith's gas tank. The way Chris Billam-Smith fights, the way he prepares for fights, he's got such a good gas tank. I don't think Ramirez is going to be able to get to him and get him down. Look, anything's possible, and he might knock him down, but I don't think he'll be able to knock him out. Because ultimately we've seen Billam-Smith, his gas tank will take him the whole 12 rounds. We've seen that a couple of times, you know, a lot now, that he's got the gas tank to go, and he'll push it to you for 12 rounds. So I don't think it'll be sort of that way. I think if there is going to be a knockout, I think it will be Billam-Smith knocking out Ramirez. But I also don't think with Ramirez's movement and his speed that Chris Billam-Smith will be able to get to Ramirez. So ultimately, I think it will go to points. I think Billam-Smith, when we've seen him get stoppages, is because he wears you down. He really wears you down. He lures you into fighting his style, and he'll batter you, and he'll beat you up, and he'll just, like I say, roughhouse you until you've got nothing left in the tank, and then he'll stop you. You know, they're not the same boxers, but when Usyk gets knockouts, it's in a similar fashion. Now, I'm not making a comparison between the two. I'm simply saying Usyk isn't a puncher. When he gets stoppages, it's from that. Billam-Smith, I think, is similar. He's not a puncher. When he gets stoppages, it's because he's worn you down, he wears you out, and then he gets stoppages. I think with Ramirez's movement and his speed that we've seen in the cruiserweight division, Billam-Smith won't be able to get to him. Not in time to stop him. He's also a high level. Because he's of that level, I think it's going to be really difficult for him to be able to get that stoppage. So I think ultimately it's going to go down to points. And points is a tricky one, because you'd think, right, I think Ramirez is the better boxer, so surely I'll go over Ramirez. But I've thought that before, and ultimately Billam-Smith has come out on top. You know, and I look at Billam-Smith's opponents and the fights he had against those opponents, and I think actually, I still think they're better boxers. I think they just lost to Billam-Smith, because again, he has that way of bringing you down to his level. And that's not an insult to Billam-Smith, as in like he's a really low level. He just lures you into those traps. It's clever. It's clever boxing. He seems to always fight his way. Do you know what I mean? He seems to always fight his style. And that's why I think actually, maybe, even if I think Billam-Smith's going to lose, he probably, you know, maybe he won't. I've thought it before, he come out on top. I also think, like I said, everyone's already lined up Chris Billam-Smith versus Opataya as the final boss fight for this division. So I think it's going to be harder for Ramirez to get a decision. That's not me saying if Chris Billam-Smith, Ramirez is going to get robbed. I'm not saying that. But I do think if it's a close fight, in everyone's mind, they've already made plans that, and you know, decided that it's going to be Billam-Smith versus Opataya next. It's just the way it is. That's it. So I think if it goes to points, when Bivol beat Canelo, Bivol very comfortably beat Canelo, but it was still given as quite a close fight. He won, but if you look at the scorecards, it was quite a close fight. Like Bivol had to go there and like wipe the floor with Canelo and still get just to get given a close decision. You know, it wasn't reflective of the actual fight. I think it would be like that. I think you have to go there and wipe the floor with Billam-Smith to get what will be a close decision, because people go in there and Billam-Smith's the favourite. And we've seen, as I said, you know, I made a video, my last video, there's a disease in boxing, and that is the judges. We've seen it before. You know, bit of promoter politics, a bit of just storyline politics, and ultimately boxing politics. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. And I think Ramirez is going to have to put on a good show and beat him quite comfortably to get this decision, as annoying as it is. But ultimately, I've learned I need to go on my gut, because There's been a few times where I haven't gone with my gut. My gut said this, I've gone with this, and I've gone with my gut. My gut said for a long time now, kind of since it was announced, I need to go with Ramirez. So I am. I don't think Ramirez is going to get drawn into Billam Smith's tactics. I think we've seen a few people that have done that. Lawrence Okoli. I never really rated Lawrence Okoli. I thought he was good, but I thought he was slightly overrated. I rated him a lot. I just think he was overrated. I think those two statements can be true. Someone can be really good and you can rate them, but they can still be overrated. Do you know what I'm saying? I think Tyson Fury, unbelievable, really, really good boxer, phenomenal. I think he's overrated. People saying that he can go in any division, any era, and hang around with the top guys. And look, I just think he's an unreal boxer, one of the best of our eras, but slightly overrated. You know what I mean? Those two statements can be true at the same time. And I think Lawrence Cody is a very good boxer, but slightly overrated. So Billam Smith, okay. Richard Riakporhe, I think, was very, very good. I rated him very highly. Maybe went in slightly underprepared, and Chris Billam Smith got it right and then came out with the victory. I don't think Ramirez is of that same sort of cloth where he's going to fall into those tactics. I think how I saw him fight at light heavyweight and taking that time off to come up to cruiserweight and how he's fighting now, I think is just showed the kind of quality he is and that he can stick to game plans. He can change his style and adapt his style to certain fighters, certain divisions and certain game plans and stick to that. And we've only seen him get better and better and better. So I expect him to come into this fight better. Like, there's no reason I think he won't come in better. He's come in every fight recently, better. So I've got every reason to believe he's going to come into this fight better, which means I think he won't get drawn into his tactics. I think he won't fall into the traps. And I think he's ultimately going to box his way beautifully to a unanimous decision win to fight Jar Pataya in the boss fight as the final boss Jar Pataya. That's what I think, people. My official prediction is Zurdo Ramirez by a unanimous decision win. You let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Am I being unfair there? Have I said anything you don't agree with? Fair enough. Let me know. Do you see it going differently? Do you see it going the same? I look forward to reading it, people. Make sure you leave a like I said. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe if you know YouTube works. Peace.